Hello and welcome back, Chat Athletes, to the second episode of Form Check Friday. Let's waste no time, straight into it. Got a lot to go through to perfect your guys' form. So we're going to go through the straddle planche clips first. I'm going to play the clips through and then break them down. So first one, leaning into it, feet come up elevated, holding, and then we roll out doing a kind of parkour roll. So let's pause it here at one of your highest places. So the straddle planche. So what is the straddle planche teaching us? The straddle planche is teaching us increased shoulder flexion. In other words, leaning more, right? What shoulder flexion is, right, is doing this motion. So when I'm in the planche, imagine I'm holding my parallettes here and my parallettes aren't moving. I'm trying to do this motion, but I'm just holding here. But it feels like I'm trying to do this, right? So in the planche, that's what you're trying to do, and in the straddle planche, you need to do this a lot more. So it's basically shoulder strength is what you're improving on and increasing, and you're trying to do this motion while you're in it. So that's what the straddle planche is teaching you. One is this increased shoulder flexion, and then two is lower body tension, which we'll go through more later. But those are the two things you should be thinking about, the shoulder flexion and then the lower body tension and mobility. But we'll talk more about that later. But let's go through the checklist. So first of all, we're doing a planche, so of course we need straight arms, and it looks like your arms are relatively straight, elbows locked out, we don't see any kinks, so we can give the straight arms a tick. Next thing, a planche, we also know we need that protraction. So the scapula need to be, or the shoulder blades need to be down. So they need to be down like this, and that gives you a sort of rounded upper back, right? That's how you can check if you look back at your clips. If you're protracted, that's how you check. And because you're leaning into the planche, that's a great way to enter into the planche. It helps you keep that protraction. So the protraction is also a tick because you've got this nice rounded upper back. Yeah, and you don't have a rounded spine. That's what we wouldn't want. The next thing is the hips. Are the hips in line with the shoulders? As you can see here, you're a bit dipped downwards, right? And that's fine. That's normal when you're learning a new skill, doing a new progression. Your hips aren't going to automatically be as high as you want them to be, but that's something to work on. But how do you get your hips higher? So you get your hips higher by pushing down into the bars more. That's going to lift your hips up. Of course, that's going to come with greater shoulder flexion, better shoulder strength. So doing all the shoulder strengthening exercises, planche leans, handstand push-ups, pike push-ups, those kind of things that allow you to push further down into the floor with your shoulders more. That's going to help lift your hips up. So the hips aren't there yet. They're a bit lower at the moment, but you're not far off, to be fair. The last thing, like I said, what does the straddle planche teach you? The straddle planche also teaches you lower body mobility, because we have to straddle the legs. We're now working on that mobility, but you're also working on tension. Tension's important because you want to keep the legs straight, right? So you do that by squeezing your quads, right? That's going to help keep your legs straight. And then you also want to point your toes. Get in the habit of pointing your toes, even if you're in the advanced tuck. And to finish off, right, the last thing about the lower body tension is the glutes. The glutes come in a lot when you're doing the straddle planche, right? If you're able to squeeze your glutes effectively, I expect your legs to be somewhere like up here, right? More in line with your shoulders. That's already going to clean up your straddle planche form. So work on your lower body, your leg hyperextensions. So just doing like leg lifts and lifting them up. That's going to get them closer in line. So as you gain the shoulder flexion to lean more, and then you're able to work your glutes more and lift your legs up, you're going to get in a flat line. So those are the things you should work on. The hips, right? That was meant to be an arrow to the hips. And then the legs, keep those tight, and the glutes. And then, yeah, you'll have a much better straddle planche. So let's waste no more time. Let's move on to the next form check. Okay, so next we have, I think this is Cruise Calisthenics, a guy I know on Instagram as well. So if you haven't already, check this guy out on Instagram. I'll try and link him in the description. He's got some funny reels. But let's go and play this through, and then we'll run it back. So straddle, okay, holds it for like a decent amount of time, like 2-3 seconds. But let's play it back here. Okay, so again, what is the straddle planche teaching us? So low body tension and leaning, that shoulder flexion, right? Those are the things it's teaching us. So we need to keep that in mind when we go through our checklist. So our arms straight, of course, we're going through the planche. So we need to keep our arms straight, and yes, our arms look relatively straight from what I can see here at this angle. So arms gonna be a check. Next thing is the protraction. So you can see here, there's, especially at this angle and the lighting, it kind of lets us see it quite well. You have this kind of dip going like this, so you're not fully protracted, and this is okay, alright? You don't have to automatically start regressing to the advanced tuck. It's fine that your attempts are they're not going to be perfect form, guys. But if you want this straddle planche, you need to start doing it with a bit of bad form, because it's not going to be perfect. So I can see that you are trying to keep your shoulders protracted, your scapula protracted, but they're not fully. So you just want to keep working on that as you're going through your straddle planche. It's something I got to work on as well with my full planche and like sometimes in the straddle as well. So nothing to worry about. But you can see, because your upper back is not like sort of rounded and filled out here, you're more dipping downwards. Your scapula is not fully protracted, so you need to work on that. Next thing is the hips. Are the hips in line with the shoulders? As you can see, we've got the opposite problem in this form check, where the hips are higher, so we're dipping downwards. So I might have a video really talking about the hips being upwards, because it's a bit of a different problem than the hips being lower. But really, it comes down to the same issue, is the shoulders. Being more comfortable leaning forward. When you're more comfortable leaning forward and have that strength, your hips will come down. It's sort of the same issue, and you want to make sure that you're recording yourself, because when you're in it, it might feel that you're flat, but actually you're like this. So the hips need to be lower, and as you gain this shoulder strength to increase your shoulder flexion, your hips will come down. But yeah, the last thing we should look at is the lower body. Just trying to see what I can see here. I can't see much from this angle, but that's alright. Just make sure you're squeezing your quads, so I can see there's a slight kink in your leg, maybe like this. Make sure your legs are straight, even if you're piked, right? I started learning the straddle planche piked. That's fine. Just make sure when you're piking, you're keeping your legs straight, right? Don't pike but not keep your legs straight. You don't want to do that. If you're piking, keep your legs straight and then focus on your glutes and leaning. Right, so point your toes. And the last thing, of course, is the glutes. There isn't really glute activation, especially in the pike. You can see it's hard to get your glutes activated in the pike, but you want to make that an actual effort, a conscious effort, I should say, to bring the legs up in line. But really, you want to focus on getting your hips down first, and then squeezing the glutes and getting your legs in line and your hips in line with your shoulders. That's going to be the best way of doing that. So guys, that's it. So I'd say you need to work on your scapular protraction, hips and lower body. And yeah, let's move on to the next form check. Quickly guys, just to let you know, we're sponsored by Gore Nation. They've got some sick calisthenics gear. I'm wearing one of their streetwear oversized tops. I hope you can see. It's got the street workout at the back. Can you see that? There it is. Street workout across the back, oversized tee, super comfortable. If you like some of Gore Nation's gear and you need some new calisthenics merch to wear, then check out Gore Nation. Use the code JACK10 at checkout for minus 10% off. Let's get straight into this and then help you guys out with your form. So let's run it back. Let me move myself over. So we're doing this on the floor, so it's going to be a bit harder. We go up, leaning into it again, entering into the planche, and we hold. And it's a good hold. And yeah, come out. And he's smiling as well. You can tell he's happy with it. It was a good hold. Really good, actually. So I'm going to run it back to here, to one of the points where you're holding. I'm going to get the pen out. So the straddle planche, what is it teaching us? Straddle planche is teaching us, can I draw? Yep. So straddle planche is teaching us increased shoulder flexion, which is this motion that you're trying to do against the floor, and it allows us to lean further into the planche by having that increased shoulder flexion. Then of course the lower body tension and mobility. So we're going to keep that in mind while we do our checklist. So first of all, we're doing a planche, so our arms straight, and yes, our arms are straight, so that's a tick. Next thing, protraction. Hard to tell with the shirt on as well. So this is why I like to do my sets with shirt off, so I can see what my scapula is doing, what my arms are doing as well. It looks relatively flat, but I can't see from this kind of axis if you're fully protracted. So just make sure you're protracted and fully pushing down, which it seems like you are. So I'm going to give that a tick because I feel like it is protracted, at least decently, but you know, you always work on your protraction. Don't let that fall behind. So next we're going to move on to the hips. So the hips, are they in line with the shoulders? And you can see we got the same issue as before, we're dipping downwards. Again, how do we fix that? We fix that by leaning forward. And you actually see he does this. So he goes into a pike straddle, and then as he leans forward, he levels out and his hips come down. Do you see that? Let's play it back. As he leans forward, his hips come down. I hope you guys see that. Right? So that's what you need to be able to do. So as you increase your shoulder strength, you'll be able to lean more, and these hips will come down in line with the shoulders. Right? So keep working on your planche leans. That's why planche leans are so important. Why everyone says keep doing planche leans while fully protracted, right? Because it helps you keep the full protraction while leaning forward, so you're working on that shoulder flexion. The other thing I haven't mentioned in the other form checks is your pelvis position and the lower back. So you don't want your lower back doing the work. Make sure your lower back isn't curving like this, right, to keep your legs up. You don't want that. Make sure your lower back is just neutral, or maybe even like a little bit down, but just, yeah, try and make sure your lower back is just staying flat, and you're not bringing your hips up with your lower back. So try not to do that. I can't tell again because of your shirt, but just make sure you're not doing that. Last thing is the legs. Do we have lower body tension? So your legs look relatively straight. Make sure you're squeezing your quads as much as you can. I'd say again, point your toes, guys. Make sure you're pointing your toes. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. And it does look like you have good glute activation, because it looks like if I drew, how do I explain this? It just looks like the angle between his actual glutes and his legs is a lot more acute. It's a lot smaller angle. It looks more like his legs are here and his glutes are like here, rather than if his legs were down here, which would be a larger angle. Right, it looks like the angle is only like here. So it looks like he's squeezing his glutes, which is really good. So your lower body tension is really good. It just looks like the lower back, make sure you're not squeezing your lower back. None of that. Keep the lower back relaxed. Use your core instead. Make sure you're squeezing your core and keeping everything flat. Lean forward. It's going to bring your hips down. And yeah, keep the protraction and the straight arms. So you're doing good. I like this one. So let's see if we can do this. Can we get someone the confetti? And we can. Yeah, you can have the. I want to give someone the confetti in one of these videos because it was a very good hold. So let me know what you think of this series. Leave a like. At 100 likes, I'm definitely going to make the 3rd episode. But really, let me know down in the comments if you guys like this series, because I'm not sure if I'm going to carry it on. But if you guys like it, then let me know and I'm going to keep doing it. But besides that, submit your form checks for next week. I've been the Jack Vegan, and I'll see you guys in the next one.